Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, share, like, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. So our lecture today is on the impact of political corruption on the political development of Nigeria. The impact of political corruption on the political development of Nigeria. Now, corruption is a native of every country. Now, corruption plagues many countries and undermines progress in society and influences negatively economic growth, social equality or social quality, and human development. According to Ali 2007, you know, corruption is a worldwide malice and it is deeply rooted in many societies. Now, corruption has several negative impacts, including changes of several regimes or defeat of one strong political party in countries with diverse ideologies and stages of development. Okay? Now, let us look at types of corruption. What are the various types of corruption? Number one type of corruption is political corruption. What is political corruption? Political corruption is a type of corruption that is carried out by political office holders. It is also the type of corruption that is seen around politicians and political activities. Now, when politicians actually buy votes, when they stuff ballot boxes, when they rig elections, when they actually pad budgets, when they actually collect bribe in order to actually formulate a particular policy or boycott certain things. Now, what has happened is actually what is known as political corruption. Okay, that is number one type of corruption. Number two type of corruption is economic corruption. Economic corruption is the type of corruption that happens in the, on the economic corridor. For example, when there is actually a sabotage to the economic resources of the nation that the nation at large benefits, nationally from, such kind of corruption is called economic corruption. Economic corruption is the type of corruption that is done, okay, particularly by, particularly, in the economic sector in such a way that those in the economy or those that actually manage the economy of the country try to, if they actually are involved in certain things that actually not just undermine the economy, but leads to misappropriation, misapplication, and of course, jeopardizing the progress of the country economically. Such kind of corruption is called economic corruption. Now, we also have judicial corruption, as the name implies. It is the kind of corruption that happens in the judiciary. If a judge collects bribe in order to actually pass judgment in favor of a particular person, such kind of corruption is called, a judicial corruption. When a barrister, when a barrister collects money, collects bribe in order to actually favor another client, favor another person, to the disfavor of his client, what he is doing is actually judicial corruption. So any kind of corruption that actually happens within the judicial corridor is actually is actually judicial corruption. Now let us look at bureaucratic corruption. This is the kind of corruption that happens in the public and civil service. Okay, this is a kind of corruption that is carried out by permanent secretaries, directors, and civil servants generally. Okay, this kind of corruption is called bureaucratic corruption. Okay, the next type of corruption is religious corruption. Now, what is religious corruption? The religious corruption is the type of corruption that happens in the religious, in the religious corridor. For example, if a pastor collects bribe or if the pastor favors, one church member over another, even when that church member is actually, obviously wrong, okay, then such kind of corruption, because he has collected money, or because of favoritism or nepotism, such kind of corruption is called religious corruption. So it may also happen in Islam or in other religions. Now, any kind of corruption that happens within the religious corridor is actually religious corruption. Now, let us look at the last one, which is moral corruption. Now, the moral corruption is actually the type of corruption that happens in the society generally, where there is moral decadence. Now, if a man actually sleeps with another person's wife, such a man is actually involved in what is known as moral corruption. Okay, so our attention in this lecture is actually on political corruption, which is defined by Edoho 2008 as pertaining arbitrariness, a culture of impunity, nepotism, favoritism, godfatherism, and the lack of due diligence in the award of contracts and the provision of services and the reward that accrue to the individual and corporate organization thereof. Now, political corruption has already been seen as a primary driver of Nigeria's underdevelopment, unfulfilled government pledges, poorly executed and abandoned projects, lack of human infrastructure, and the disconnect between the wealth of the nation and the thorough disempowerment of citizens. Now, political corruption is also seen as a regular source of drain on government finance and the single most important factor in the inability of the states to meet or surpass set developmental objectives and targets. Okay, now let us look at the impact of political corruption. The impact of political corruption on Nigeria's political development. What are the impact? The impact are mostly on the negative side. And the first negative impact of political corruption on Nigeria's political development is, number one, the tainting of Nigeria's image in the international arena. It was the former Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron, that actually once said that Nigeria is fantastically corrupt. Okay? Now, such a statement is not actually a very good one. It's not a very good one for the image of Nigeria, in the foreign or in the international arena. So if Nigeria is actually known as a country that is a bad omen to foreign direct investment, to investors, of course, that it will actually affect the development of the country, okay, a great deal. So that is number one. Number two, it leads to erosion of political national values, okay, ethos and ethics. It leads to erosion of national values, ethos and ethics. Now, the culture of hard work, the culture of striving for perfection, this culture of actually, ensuring that Nigeria actually is put on the pedestal of development will actually be waned, will be eroded away because of corruption. That is number two. Number three, it circumvents honesty, integrity, hard work, and of course, cherished principles of accountability and transparency. Cherished principles of accountability and transparency. That is actually number three. Number four, it leads to political violence. Of course, corruption leads to political violence. Okay. Then number five, it widens the gap between the rich and the poor. Of course, Nigeria is a society that actually condones corruption. And because they condone corruption, of course, the gap between the poor and the rich keeps getting widened by the day, getting wider and wider by the day. Okay, so those are the things. Now, it leads to political apathy. A lot of people actually are not even interested in the politics because of they are not interested in the politics because of the way the politics has actually been handled over time. So, thank you very much.